Streaming. We can do a screen check. Great. I just gotta. Let's see. Okay. We're on Facebook. Thanks for the share, Michael.
LinkedIn is live.
LinkedIn's live.
Yeah.
Twitter's live.
Okay, great. Twitter's live. Assuming that YouTube is live. Okay, so sounds like the Gillmor gang is getting ready to stream, or we are streaming to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're about to start the Gillmor gang. I guess is it the last time in October? How's that?
All right with me.
Do we get candy?
Yeah, we shouldn't we?
It's a treat. No,
Or maybe it's
or
a
a trick.
Trick.
trick or dare.
Trick or dare. You're making stuff up on the fly now.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
me.
the sign of the apocalypse.
You wanna get the door out of your.
This one?
Yeah.
I like the door better.
Okay. All right. All
I
right.
see Brent has the good lighting again.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it's like, just less lighting.
Okay. All right, you ready? Okay. Mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor gang. Joining us from the Framework and Compact of Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant.
Hi, Steve. It's me, Dennis. Yes, it's a compact framework, and I'm here.
Oh, that was
Behind it.
bad.
That's props and everything.
You know,
That's
and
cool.
and you know, I please let me out, please.
You know, I would have given you plaudits for the framework, but getting the compact as well, that's like genius.
All right,
Thanks. Okay, I'll see you next week.
crypto plaudits, right?
He was ready for you, Steve.
I'm really stunned. Okay, the guy, well, it doesn't matter where it is on my screen, but
Thank you.
somewhere on my screen at a location to be named later is from the state of Washington,
Okay.
Michael Markman.
How do you do? Glad to be here. I haven't said enough, have I?
No.
Correct.
Keep going. Keep going.
So is Trump back on Twitter?
Oh, no. Stop.
Okay, now you're done.
The
You don't have to use
editorial
mine.
the editorial director of the show apparently is from the state of Atlanta, Georgia. It's Brent Leary.
I'm wearing my new Rams hoodie. Vamos Rams. Everybody know what that means?
It
Okay, you're
doesn't
making
mean
us-
like the F word off Rams.
No.
It definitely doesn't.
Let's go Rams.
I mean, vamos, doesn't that mean like get out of here?
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
Not
thinking.
necessarily. You guys
I'm
need
with
to go back.
Steve. I'm with Steve.
Yeah, you need to go back with Steve to remedial Spanish, apparently. You're not getting
You know, I took French. Sorry.
Oh, well.
Steve's a French snob.
Correct.
Yeah.
The
I
voice
already
you
knew
just
half of
heard,
that.
the voice you just heard is Tina
Uh,
Gillmor. You want to put your
You know,
camera on?
only on the days where I'm not wearing makeup or anything does Steve actually introduce me.
Hey,
And
let's
he
see what's
wasn't
on your
that-
hat. What's that on your hat there?
It's some swag I got from a conference this week. What does it say? Bitcoins or something? What is it say?
Blockchains.
Blockchain, there we go.
yeah. You know what's funny about Zoom? I should take a picture just because I got my laptop and I'm logged in and watching on Facebook on a big screen, and Zoom has Tina on the big screen at the top left, but on the little screen on the bottom right. This is really weird.
Well,
That
just
kind of
goes to
stuff.
show you, I can be in. two
Well, yeah.
places.
Yeah, if Frank were here, he'd be saying, or not anywhere at all.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's a
Tina,
learning, there's a
Tina.
learning there, Brent. The learning is that Zoom is an edge app that has no central command and control. So
Yeah.
basically every participant has their own view.
This is my favorite part of the show where we get explanations about things we don't care
Wait, I
about.
want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear too.
Oh, okay. Well, that's two of you.
I was,
Yeah.
I was interested too, you know.
After that, maybe we can talk about why the sky is blue.
Thank you.
Oh,
Where's that frame again?
hey, no,
Not where I live. It's gray.
Keith.
So you will notice that Zoom is quite a big download. And when you launch it on your computer, it's kind of running the show from your point of view because it's a weighty piece of software and the cloud is just streaming. So basically you get to control your own view. You can mess around with it and change it and it won't affect anything for anyone else. However, Tina's switching, which is being recorded, creates a controllable view. So when the gang goes out afterwards, you get to see Tina's controlled view of the show. That's the only time you can get to see it.
Yes, you can drag and drop anybody into any position.
Yep.
If you want to put Tina in the upper left, you can do that.
You know, I'm used to being dragged on this show, so that's good to know. So
I am changing where I am.
That was good.
On my view.
And I think
So,
Brent's going to be super depressed unless we also acknowledge that his camera look is super good again today. He's obviously
no,
been
Michael
working-
already mentioned that. I
Hey,
just
you know what? I don't have to be here. That's fantastic. I just realized
Bye.
what the fuck.
Okay, but you do because you have to.
No, I'm gone.
Oh,
Well, there he is.
Yeah. So
Are we still doing the intros, by the way?
He's still gonna be here.
Absolutely. I have control of everything. The guy that was just explaining in a totally incomprehensible fashion.
I understand.
Wow.
I mean, do you understand anything more about what he said?
I did, but he was getting interrupted. You know.
Well, that was the
Oh.
part. So that guy is
Voice.
Keith Cheer. Welcome, Keith.
A great pleasure to be here as the technical assistant to the editor.
Okay, that's it, right? I did Michael. I did everybody.
You got
Frank Radis is still in SCAD. I believe that today or maybe yesterday was his fabulous 40th anniversary of the making of Blade Runner 5.
You know, it was also, as I saw from a Facebook posting by whoever runs the Prince, Facebook account, 40th anniversary of 1999.
Wow.
40 years. Jeez.
So 1999 plus 40
Wow.
equals 2022. That's amazing.
Steve, your being off screen is really screwing me up because when I switch, it's switching to just like your name with black around it. It's
Okay.
really bad.
Okay.
But you want a bad show. So.
Yeah, I do
Oh.
want a bad show, actually.
This week actually also showed the 50th anniversary of C.B. Wonder's Talking Book.
Talking book. Thanks for posting
that
that,
was
article. Yes.
Yes, New York Times with hefty quotes from our good friend David Sanborn.
David Sanborn, that's right.
That's right.
He was on that album.
He was
On that album.
on one of the tracks, and he was on the road with Stevie Wonder at that point.
Wow.
So he was in the room next door listening to him write all those songs.
Mm.
He could listen to him, right?
Yeah, that's how, have you ever?
That's great. I'm just saying.
Posing. Yeah.
According to that article, Stevie Wonder set up a companion keyboard so that he and Ray Charles could practice together in a studio in
Imagine
Los
that.
Angeles. Yeah, I never looked at that.
That's really cool.
Dave just got some commendation. or
That's right.
something
He
on the
was
side.
just got an award for people that used to be on the Letterman show. Yeah,
Oh,
there was a picture of him and
joined.
Paul Schaefer and Will Lee accepting the award. Okay, well, in other musical news, I don't.
All
I think we
right.
should just stick with music and forget about everything else.
That would be good, but unfortunately,
Because then if we don't, we're gonna have to talk about
Musk?
Elon and Twitter.
well, how does it feel?
What, to know that you were right?
Ah.
Ah,
Now, does it feel any different?
I wouldn't know. I don't use the product.
There you
Well,
go.
wait until I hear Kanye's already back. So there's that.
No accounting for taste.
So did I see a Bloomberg post that Musk is going to be the CEO?
Yes, he's appointed himself CEO. Yes.
He already fired the other guy. Yeah.
He's firing everybody else.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it's gonna take for the wheels to fall off.
I think weren't we all saying though that
That
didn't-
would imply that the wheels are on.
Wheels
They can't
on-
fall off if they've
go
never
round
been
and round, round and round.
I think that we all thought though that he was going to appoint another CEO. Weren't we more?
No, I don't think so. We thought that.
No,
No.
I do.
Well,
He,
this
he
part,
may at some point,
Maybe.
but I think in the early stages he wants to be the one holding the reins.
There's a lot of very embarrassed people who raise their hands begging to be made the CEO who are not going to be chosen.
Who are those folks? Anybody we might know?
unfortunately,
It
yes,
would be
we-
rude. It would be rude to name names, but
Yeah,
if you
so
know,
go
you
ahead.
know. And I'm British. I can't be rude. It's not allowed.
Oh,
You will understand, bless you, you will understand how bad his ADHD is by how long it takes him to find a CEO.
It'll take him a while. Let's
Oh,
do a
then-
vote. I'm saying more than a year.
Ooh.
Oh, I think.
I'm
I think
saying
Twitter's
that-
in
Wow.
trouble.
I'm saying he's not. Why would he have to? He doesn't need a CEO.
Could be
He
true.
Yeah,
needs somebody to run it.
it's part
I
of
mean-
the reorg. Is
Yeah, but-
a CEO.
doesn't he have a lot of other stuff to do, like running Tesla and SpaceX? You know?
Well, is he CEO of SpaceX or?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
He is, but of Tesla. But you know, he's. I think he's actually a super good team builder. He's got this reputation for being hard, but I think he's actually really good at putting very, very good people in positions of control. And then he is their peer in the room. He's one of his requirements is that he can say what he thinks, and no one's offended. And of course, he gets rid of people if they're not performing. He's pretty strict on that. So you know, if you were to measure him by the standards of leadership, I think he's pretty good.
Well, if he says something and he makes sure he's in a room where no one takes offense, that's because he's fired anybody who might take offense.
No, it's also because he understands his own limits. He understands that there are cleverer.
I haven't seen any data on him understanding his own limits.
That's the people he puts around him. He knows where he doesn't know, and he puts people there who do know. I mean,
Does he have people that can stand up to him and he won't, fire him?
he actually demands that. That's the kind of people he wants.
Sounds like you're a big fan.
Does that really happen though?
I'm a huge fan. I mean, I can tell you it's super hard to get there. I just had a board meeting this week that I barely spoke in because 3 or 4 of my team members ran the board meeting. And to get to that place as someone who's used to doing startups and being a leader is quite a journey of humbleness. I think he's way more humble than people realize.
I don't know, but I can believe that. I think there's a public persona and then a private persona with Elon, and I don't think they're quite incongruency. I think publicly he is brash and rash and mercurial, but it just would be impossible to build the companies he's built without having good teamwork and good delegation skills. You couldn't possibly run Tesla from your own desk or SpaceX. It just I don't see how any organization could work that way.
Well, plus, you know, it does take a certain amount of skill to make a car and put rockets in space and have them land back. You definitely can't do it all by yourself.
That's true.
And I think Twitter, you know, we were talking about, it's funny, Josh Ellman, who used to be, I think he was at Twitter, but he was certainly at a lot of social media companies. He works at Apple now. He was tweeting this morning, goodbye to Web 2.0. And it was kind of a sad tweet thread where he was lamenting the fact that the promise of Web 2.0 was to make everyone powerful by pushing content in such a way that there was no center, RSS being part of that. And he was lamenting that with Facebook's move to the metaverse and Twitter going private and TikTok is private, the only remaining public social media Web 2.0 kind of companies are Snapchat and, you know, what else? Pinterest.
YouTube.
Maybe YouTube, yeah, you could count YouTube. But he was lamenting it almost, it's funny because I think Web 2.0, I look in the rear view mirror for Web 2.0. My gardener's just waving to me. I think Web 3.0 and AI and blah, blah is the next stage. And it hadn't occurred to me to feel sadness about the demise of Web 2.0, but I think Josh Ellman's right, actually. Some of the promise of Web 2.0 is unfulfilled still. And Musk might have a shot at retrieving it.
Brent, do you agree?
Yeah, I don't know.
Were you even there? Were you listening?
Yeah, I was playing around with one of these computers that did something weird. So, you know, look, I just find it, there's what, 7-8 billion people in the world. And I don't want any one person having so much control over, you know, stuff that if they have a bad day or, you know, I don't know, it just feels a little, you know, I think it's great, you know, what's, you know, Tesla, what he's doing there and SpaceX. I mean, damn, do we need one guy to have that much control over so much? That's my only thing. I don't care who it is. I just don't like any one person being able to have so much control over the stuff that we spend a lot of our attention on. That's just me.
It's an interesting thing that you say that, Brent, because my guess is he might agree with that. But the interesting thing about the world we live in is he kind of demonstrates that there's no real limit to what an individual can achieve. And so if any of us are ambitious enough and can articulate a vision well enough to
Have a
generate the
millionaire for a father.
resources, to get money to actually execute, it's possible to do huge things. And so much as I kind of agree with you that you don't want a lopsided world with single people becoming like, you know, overlords, at the same time, you do want a world in which individuals can, where there's no limit to what they can achieve. So it's about, you know, it's kind of an interesting quandrum.
It is, but can I counter that and say, that's why I think I appreciate a guy like Bill Gates even more, because he could have done that decades ago. I like the fact that him and his then wife kind of, said, you know what, there's bigger things in this world that need to be solved, and let's spend some of our time and effort and money going after things like killing off malaria, or other things that are just as ambitious, and I think even more important than trying to rule the world, so to speak, in terms of the communications and the travel and the and all that other stuff. I can recognize and I can appreciate what he's done. I don't know. There's something about somebody being always in your face all the time that I just don't like.
But do you see them as either or? Why can't there be a Gates and a Musk? Why do you have to counter?
No, there is. I'm just telling you, my preference. I'm not saying that you can't have one or the other. You can have both, of course, because we have both. I just appreciate somebody who doesn't mind not always being in front of the camera or having to tweet something and having everybody respond to it. I like a guy that goes and says, all right, I'm going to go and try to solve this big challenge because it's something that the world needs, and concentrate even when the cameras aren't on or nobody's really focusing on what he's doing, because it might take years to actually do something. I appreciate that a lot now. I think I've grown in appreciation of that as we deal with these big personalities that always have to try to be in front of the camera all the time.
But do you still believe in that Apple ad about the crazy ones, the different ones, and the 1984 thing of throwing the hammer at the screen and knocking down established norms? Doesn't Musk stand for that more than Gates?
He does now. I mean, there was a time where Gates, what Microsoft was about 46, 47 years ago? Started 46, 47. I mean, think about the time when they started the whole PC revolution and the software revolution. That was just as eye-opening and different as what's going on now. So I think he was like Elon, I think, in certain aspects, but it feels like, I don't want to come off as like I'm Elon bashing. I don't like when anybody can just monopolize so much of our time and attention, regardless of all the great stuff they're doing.
It reminds me of when I'm at dinner and I speak too much, my wife always tells me I'm dominating. Afterwards, she gets really mad with me. And I always say to her, well, why don't you say something?
You're dominating.
Well,
he's afraid of you.
Can't get a word in it.
Yeah, no, but when you have a personality that is like mine, if everyone around you is a shrinking violet, you're going to dominate. But if you surround yourself with people who are not afraid of you, you're going to be an equal.
Oh, here you're going back to your new narrative.
Yeah, but I think that's true. I think you can't blame the person grabbing the attention for grabbing the attention. You have to blame the other people for not grabbing the attention.
I blame the media, actually. I don't blame Musk.
I can go with that too. I think you're right, Keith. I think it's so easy for the media to hang on the words of a strong man or a rich man, and because people gravitate towards that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I think you're right. There's a lot of blame to go around. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't like when any one person dominates my thoughts or my attention, or I can't look at something without seeing their face or their quotes. That just irritates the hell out of me. That's just me.
I'm seeing Brent every single day on my LinkedIn. You're totally dominating my LinkedIn. So back off, dude.
Now that's funny. Me and Elon, we're dominating.
What does that mean, Dennis?
Hook 'em horns.
It's sort of the opposite of this. It's like there's no congruency.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. I agree with Dennis. There's no congruency between me and Elon Musk. I'll tell you that.
But were you impressed yesterday when the first thing he did is fire the head of legal, the CEO, the CFO, and I think one other person.
Well, first of all, you don't know that to be true.
No, actually,
that-
let me rephrase it. When it was reported that that happened, who knows what actually happened? I mean, everyone there made millions of dollars because they had their shares bought by him. So
Yeah, it's a tough break.
so it's less of a tough break. But I was kind of impressed that he combined walking in with a kitchen sink with decisive moves. And today he's tweeting that he's going to dig in deeper today to try to understand things. So he already is acknowledging he doesn't really know that much yet. So well, let's see. Let's give him some space and let's see.
Well, I think for sure he knows he overpaid.
Yep, absolutely. I'm shocked.
I don't think he does think that, actually. I think he thinks that he has, I think that he thinks that the value of the company is going to double.
Well, by stock market appreciation or valuations, he sealed the deal at the peak, and the thing's gone down since. So
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that
He
your
has
comment.
overpaid.
What I'm saying is that you were surmising that he thought something, and I was suggesting what I think he's thinking, which is that he got a steal.
Oh, no. I'm
that
not surmising.
He got in.
I'm
He got in
making
where
a joke.
nobody else has been able to get in to this particular role, and I think he thinks that he's doing very well.
Well,
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yes.
I mean, you can't measure the valuation now, can you? It's what he has. There is no market vote on what the worth of the company is. So it's going to, he doesn't even have to report the revenues anymore, does he?
No, it's going to be a function of growth and revenue. His letter to advertisers yesterday was kind of the first nuanced take I'd seen him put out there in public, where he combined a vision for basically a global town hall square or whatever it's called, with an appreciation that it can't be a hellhole, and advertisers are going to need to sit alongside things that they're pleased to sit alongside. So I think he's going to stick to his guns on not over moderating, and so therefore I do think Trump will come back, not just Trump but others as well. But I do think he's
Not me.
Not you, no, but it's voluntary. You can if you want.
I'll keep that in mind.
So I think that town, if you think what Twitter is, there's nothing like it. I mean, it is really the pulse of what's going on everywhere in the world, apart from probably China. And that is kind of profound and significant. And so could this become something worth 150 billion in a world where Apple is worth $1 trillion? You've got to believe the answer should be yes.
Well, with what is it called? Starlink? Starlink. He could certainly seed Twitter around the world if he wants to.
Mhm.
If he made it a usable system, anybody could use, which is a tall order. But the combination of the two is kind of interesting.
I mean, this week alone, Starlink turned on Jamaica. It was one of the stories. Jamaica is now turned on. Imagine turning on an entire country for the internet.
Yeah.
In one day. I mean, what you would have had to have done previously to do that is dig lots of holes in roads for years and provision ISPs and blah, blah. It's kind of amazing. It's amazing.
It's also, as Brent said, there's a lot of power there. I've said that too, but I'm going to say that Brent said that because.
Well, sure. And he gave us a flex of that power when he said he's not going to be subsidizing Ukraine anymore. And then he said, okay, I will. I mean, that's the kind of thing that reinforces Brent's position, it is scary when someone has that much power.
Right. The flip flop, flip flop. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
well,
Can we
So
talk
when you
about
say he
somebody else?
turned on Jamaica, what? How many ground
Jamaica's been
stations?
turning us on for years. What do you mean?
How many ground stations are there in Jamaica? How much? It really doesn't happen in one day, does it? I mean, how many people? How many people have access to the internet in Jamaica?
No,
as of
I mean,
today?
that's a good point. I mean, obviously Jamaica has a wireless infrastructure, so it's probably got 3G at least. I actually don't know, but I'm going to guess it's got 3 and 4G. So it's not as if people are not connected, but this is more like when you can get between 25 and 100 meg upload and download. And you do have to buy a ground station, which costs a couple of $100, I think. So not everyone.
well, forget it. Then.
Yeah. And Jamaica is not that poor a country, so there will be a decent number of people who can afford it at $200 if they want internet. And then there's a subscription fee, so it's going to compete with local ISPs for sure. But it's more the infrastructure. I wasn't really focused on the business model on the ground as much as I was the capability.
Can I?
Can
we
you
talk about
ask whether you
somebody
can
else?
change the subject again?
Yeah, can we talk about? Because I just railed spending so much time,
I
thinking
know
attention
it
on.
is your fault.
And we
It
are
is-
just drilled all up into this dude's orifices at this point. Can we just move on?
Well,
Can we look?
I do not agree that I am drilled up into his orifice. Sorry.
I'm just saying, figuratively speaking,
Yeah.
it just feels like
Is it painful?
Oh no,
Who would
I
know?
I shouldn't have said that.
Brent, what do you want to talk about?
Anything else? The weather. I mean,
Come on, Brent,
okay,
what do
let's-
you want to talk about?
Yeah.
what about? How about? And this kind of, I just heard that Jerry Lee Lewis died. By the way, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
87.
So
I
rest in
thought he
peace.
was dead already, so I was not so surprised.
I thought he was like 150 by now, so he's still young compared to what I thought.
Just died. He's
Okay.
really only 87. Wow.
Yeah.
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 Let's
Well, he
put
got-
a new thing on Great Balls of Fire.
All right. Well, we're going to move off of that one.
Oh, goodness gracious!
What about?
Good God. Lottie Miss Claudie. Who is that?
Good golly, Miss Molly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was Little Richard, wasn't it? I don't know. I'm
I think you're right.
a little before my time. All right. So,
A
what's
lot of this is before your time.
this week has been really interesting. I'm looking at, it looks like the stock market is up 750 points. Yesterday, was it Facebook or Meta or whatever you call it, was down
25%.
something percent. Apple had some good. Amazon was down like 12-13%. Apple came in and meet their expectations, and all of a sudden, the stock market is up 750 points right now. Apple is up 8%, and it's pretty much Apple is leading the stock market up. We had about a 2.6% quarterly GDP growth, and yet and still there's all these recession fears. Can anybody make any sense out of the current climate right now? Because it feels like there are so many mixed signals, but yet and still, I'm not feeling all that great about things, generally speaking, when it comes to the.
So here's Professor Irwin Corey's comment on this is, the market flux up and then flux down.
I think you just conflated two ideas. One is the stock market and general happiness. Very often we conflate general happiness with money, but David Brooks's column today, I think, or yesterday in the Times, talks about a global deficit of happiness that started back in the middle of the last decade. And the chickens are coming home to roost now. So yeah, money's being made. people like Elon will not have to worry about sending their great grandchildren to college. But people like me and you are, looking at the world and saying, do I have to put a mask back on? Am I going to be able to afford my mortgage payments? Or
Look, I
rent?
mean, there are so many clouds hanging over the world, including, we're still far from out of the woods on climate. That's a huge weight
Oh, yeah.
on things. We're far from out of the woods on basic human rights. There's a big war going on in Ukraine, which has global impact on the economy.
Is Vladimir going nuclear?
There are threats of nuclear war. There's uncertainty about what's happening in Asia. There's lots of, and the pandemic is over, but it's not over. We don't wear masks, but we're going to get sick. So there's lots of things to worry about, and then there's inflation. Inflation hits you every time you go buy food shopping.
I wonder if we've unlearned how to deal with the multiplicity of issues that come at us in normal life because of the pandemic. Did we forget how to deal with all those things because we just sat at home and watched everything coming in through the TV portal?
It could well be. I mean, the scores that came out in terms of academic achievement in schools in 4th and 8th grade were just appalling. How much of that had to do with school closures? How much of that had to do with general anxiety? How much of that had to do with just the people being forced to stay home or choosing to stay home? There's a huge amount of disruption that hasn't been assimilated by the world. We're still trying to digest it.
Well, now we're going to be the greatest generation because we have, a real crisis that we have to deal with.
Which real crisis of the many? Which one?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean,
but that's harder than having to deal with one crisis. Yeah, you can mobilize clearly against one crisis when you have crises coming from every direction.
I agree, that is hard, but it's what we have to do.
No, you know what? I think it's actually easier when there are a lot of crises because and this is the key. If you develop a culture of getting things done, a can-do spirit, one of the real problems we have right now is that our politics doesn't afford that. When one party is in power, it wants to shut everything down and make the other side fail. As a consequence, we could go for years with stasis, and the issue I think that we confront when we're blasé about the world is that nobody's doing anything. And if we decide, hey, yeah, we can solve these problems, the world changes quite rapidly.
Yeah, but I think there's a little both sides of it in that. The parties are not symmetrical in terms of shutting each other down. The Democrats have tried very hard to reach across the aisle, and the Republicans say none of that. If you just look at the list of accomplishments of the Biden administration and the Democratic Congress, there's a lot of problem solving going on. There's a lot of pragmatic thought, a lot of input, and really complex, detailed work being done to try and solve problems. On the other side, you have basically fear mongering. You have appeals to white nationalism. You have appeals to all kinds of cultural fears.
Well, I agree with you, but I would like to suggest that we hold that in abeyance for just a second, because we're all living in that. We're all part of it. We can have different opinions, and our audience might have different opinions. What's I think more telling is if you go back 70 or 80 years and look at what happened during the Roosevelt administration, it was nothing but pure can-do. and a hell of a lot got accomplished because everybody pitched in. Everybody said, "Yeah, all right, we're not gonna wallow in the mud. We're gonna solve these problems." And by and large, we solved maybe not every one of them, but a lot.
I think that's true.
Anyhow,
It's interesting to look back at that time. Look at the New York World's Fair in 1939. There was a huge corporate presence trying to dig out of the Depression, and lots of things were put on the table. Robotics was on the table, television was on the table, nylon was on the table, all kinds of things from every one of those corporate attendees at the World's Fair. There was a great positive message coming out. And then that was also the start of World War II, which sort of took that energy and put it in a different direction.
all right, put a lot on the shelf, didn't it?
It did, but then at the end of the war, it all came off the shelf, and we had an explosion of progress in the 1950s and the early 60s.
Right, and that brings up a point that we talked about a week or two ago, which is that advancements have sort of a halting nature when you see a culture advancing rapidly like that, but it's because there's a great backlog of smaller advancements that get depoted or accumulated in the culture, and when they all come together and conditions are right, when people like Keith start companies and make things work, a lot of progress seems to get made very quickly, but it's years in the making.
There's this concept of latency. I mean, things happen that are not visible, but are happening in labs, in universities, in garages, that have no large economic impact when they're churning in their early stages, and then they burst forth like the chess monster and the Alien.
Yeah,
so you see them skittering across the floor.
It's kind of interesting because the just to stand back a bit, the way it works is innovation usually removes humans from jobs and frees them up to do other jobs that previously weren't being focused on. So the division of labor, if you think of it holistically, is the key engine of change, because it's more and more humans doing more and more things that are getting freed up due to automation and other innovations. And I think there's never been a time at which that's happening more rapidly than now. I mean, we're at the peak of automation replacement jobs. And the big question everybody thinks of is, what will the new jobs be? Because there is a belief that there'll come a point at which there are no new jobs because automation can do everything. So it's kind of a balance.
But that's not true, that automation can do everything.
I agree, it's not true. It'll probably never be true.
So there isn't a time when that's going to be true.
No, but
it's doing more and more that, each year there are things that are being done in software and in automation hardware that would have been inconceivable 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So there does seem to be
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that for example, the current thing, we talked about this last week a little bit, about AI and essentially teaching the machines to teach themselves, that idea. There's this big artificial art thing going on right now, the latest and greatest. I think it's total bullshit.
Well, that's
I really do.
A profound statement indeed.
No, I think that it will lead to some accidents or experiments that lead to some important changes.
That's right.
Now, creating a piece of art by typing words is it's like a problem looking for a solution, or a solution looking for a problem. It's just it's in its own little universe, and it's being promoted as a ticket to the future. And I just think that it's ass backwards. It really is.
Well, I mean,
Well-
when you think about art, it's, you know, it's not the image that people respond to. It's the human that created the image that they respond to. It's what the artist has been able to encapsulate and represent visually. If it's just a pattern, if it's just a splatter, or something that's derived from typing in some words, you can't respond to it in the same way as you can when you think, my God, Picasso painted that. What was he
Well,
thinking?
who doesn't
Well,
believe that? Roll the clock forward a bit. I saw this thing this week where a computer created humans that don't exist, and they look totally real. And they can do it in video as well now. Why won't, you know, Simon Cowell create a boy band that doesn't exist and write great songs, and it becomes the #1 and makes a ton of money, and he doesn't have to pay anyone?
Well, part of what makes
what?
boy bands work is sexual, is romantic, it is fantasy, it's people wanting to be with them. You know, you can create that image totally artificially, but without the human element, I don't think that boy band will have the same appeal as real. You know, a Pinocchio boy band will not have the same appeal as a human boy band.
We also
Well,
just
Pinocchio.
separate out the whether it's going to be successful and make money from whether or not it's worth anything.
No, you know, there is this famous quote from Dr. Johnson. He said, a woman's preaching is like a dog's walking on its hinder legs. It is not done well, but one marvels that it is done at all. And, you know, it's a terribly outdated sexist comment. But what we marvel at is that, oh, look, you can type words and get an image. You're marveling that it's done at all. You're not really marveling at the quality of the image. It's a parlor trick.
I think it's about
at this stage, that's all it is a parlor trick.
No, I think it's about tools. I think when Leonardo da Vinci made a better paintbrush and could do things, or better materials like oil, for example, human creativity yearns for tools that can realize what's in the brain. Like, I have music in my head, but I can't play a piano. And if I could hum badly a tune, and somebody could put it in the right key, and I could express what's in my head without needing to play the piano, that would be fantastic. So I think you've got to think of this as tools to human creativity, not replacements.
But when you do that, then people can relate to it as human creativity. It's not quite the same as machine-created art. Machine-assisted art is different from machine-created art.
Well, there is no. I could be wrong about this, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Dali is creating art. I think Barry Weiss had a piece about this from a guest writer. I think Dali is assembling existing art to meet whatever the words describe, and is quite good at doing that. So Dali kind of isn't art, but there's other ones. There's this guy this week from is it called Stability.ai? He's a British guy who was interviewed by Elad Gil live on YouTube, who was the most arrogant, egotistical guy you could wish to meet. He's raised 3 rounds of funding in 2 months, and he's talking about raising $1 billion. But all he's built so far is this thing called something's diffusion. It's kind of a competitor to DALL-E. And so there's a lot of BS, as Steve said. I totally agree with Steve on that. On the other hand, there's also something real happening, which is the ability of machines to enhance human ideas is really accelerating.
Yeah, that's been ongoing for a long time, and
forever.
I'm just saying that well, I've already said it, so I don't really need to repeat it. Or it might be like a machine repeating it.
But if you think of it in terms of tools, I think that is a very good framework. Massachusetts. It's a wonderful framework because as a tool, what are you doing? You are finding an easier or cheaper way of doing something that you do now. You are finding a way to do something that you previously couldn't do. You're finding a way to do totally new things. You're finding a way to do something, as Keith said, that you wish you could do, and now you have a means to do it. And then you have a way of doing things that you previously hadn't even considered doing. But all of that is reflected through how the human sees it, grasps, and utilizes the tool.
Agreed. Did you notice that Jack Dorsey launched this new Web 5 thing yesterday at the same day that Elon went into Twitter?
We're up to Web 5 now?
Yeah.
And what is Web 5?
Web 5 is just not Web 3. It's his.
And what happened to 4?
For his fear is that 4 will also be owned by the bad guys. So he jumped straight to 5 to be in a space that he can own outright.
Wow.
I think it's just
some of the stuff we've been talking about all goes back to raising the level of anxiety in the world, which is contributing to a certain amount of malaise that I was talking about earlier. The rate of change of technology has never been greater, has never been faster. And I think what we might be looking at in part is the humankind's ability to keep up.
No, I think that's a huge point, because people's ability to migrate to new paradigms is not evenly distributable. If you look at Keith's view, which is a macro view, yes, makes a lot of sense. But if you get into the weeds, a lot of people's lives will be disrupted. A lot of people's lives and livelihoods and sense of place in the world will be completely demolished on the way there. Not everybody is going to find is going to find paradise on the same day,
Or by the dashboard light. Yeah,
Dashboard light. Yeah.
I
hear you.
I don't know how many of you have checked out this documentary on PBS about TikTok, but if you haven't, you might want to check it out, because it's not about how, it's a great technology or anything it's about the impact that this particular platform seems to be having a uniquely different kind of impact on the folks that get addicted to it than any other of the social networks before, and the possible good, but a lot of bad that's really coming from it. And it feels like what Dennis said about this anxiety, just the general thing, you could almost feel it in this particular documentary about that particular platform, because it is the one that everybody seems to be really gravitating towards right now. And they have like these content creator folks who, have amassed, this one dude has 32 million followers on TikTok. And for what? For beatboxing. I don't know if you guys know, what beatboxing is. But I remember when we first started doing that when I was in school in the 80s, where you're just making sounds with your mouth. And basically this kid is, just started videotaping himself and load him up on TikTok, beatboxing, not doing anything spectacular. And now he's got 32 million followers.
Just started the video.
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, okay. And so I was like, I'm hearing myself. Oh, that's not good. So and something happened, because you can't really cultivate a community on TikTok like you can on YouTube, because the algorithm is the one in charge of who sees what. And he got something happened where he kind of stepped out of his bounds and he said something, and apparently it was something that like the Chinese government didn't like. And all of a sudden he went from getting these millions of views to getting 0, like overnight. And it caused a panic because he said, look, I'm feeding my family. I'm doing all these things off of being able to get all these views and work with brands. And, I don't want to go back to the EM guy anymore, but it just feels like even when you're using these systems and platforms and technologies to surprisingly, reach this mass audience, it can be taken away from you, without a thought, and could impact and upend your life considerably. And a lot of these folks, these just younger generation folks, they look at these people. I think there was a survey a couple of years ago that said, ask what was the profession that a lot of these, high up, folks that are getting ready to graduate, what was the profession they were looking to get into? And the number one profession was content creator and influencer.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there was a time when people aspired to be a rock musician or a movie star, but they knew at the time that was a very or a star athlete, that's a very narrow funnel. You might aspire to it, but you'll never get there. When you have something that's based on user content, there is no gatekeeper keeping you from getting there. You can upload. If you get a camera, you can upload, and
You can
and
upload,
so
but
a lot of more people will
gonna see.
entertain that as an aspiration, and a lot more people will get there as an aspiration. But with TikTok, you're not in charge of it. The algorithm is, so it's pretty scary.
Right.
Yeah,
and
but
I think
TikTok's
it's very
mainly
interesting that people would actually commit their livelihood to something that they don't understand. Like they have no control over it. So it's like, here they are depending on it. They're buying things, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they literally have no control over.
Look, go back to the corporate world. You could be laid off at any moment. Your company could have a bad quarter and say, we need an RIF, reduction in force, 10%, 25%.
Okay,
People have
sure,
to
but
go, and you have no control of it. You're out.
But you can take your talents then after you get laid off and hopefully find a job with another company. There's not another TikTok.
No, but there are, there is Twitch and there is YouTube, and you can take your talents and try and shop it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think TikTok's a bit different because it's entertainment, really. I mean, I don't think of it as social networking. It's just entertainment, and it's 30-second, one after the other, and it learns what you like and what you don't like, and so it becomes even more entertaining for each individual. So it's a bit addictive. So that's down to the individual to balance the amount of time they spend on it. It's addictive. Why? Because it's good. And so I think of that differently than, let's say, news-related social networking. Like I wouldn't want Twitter to take away my control over who I follow. I'd like them to increase my control. I want to be able to follow hashtags, like Steve used to talk about, track. And so I think it depends. I think where it's a tool for you to engage with others, you want control. Where it's entertainment, it has to be good for you to give up control. But if it's good, giving up control ends up being a good thing, not a bad thing. So I think it depends.
It's addictive. I think that's the word that you use.
It is addictive.
I think that's the principle that they're building on. It's a principle that a lot of entertainment media have tried to build on. Gambling media built on. The way the Las Vegas machines are programmed is based on Skinnerian addictive principles.
Well, but the best thing that can happen to you is to be if you if you win too much in Vegas, then they don't let you into the city. There are gating factors here. As much as this is addictive, it's also it reaches a point where going back to what Dennis says, where the human cortex just can't handle it, and you basically you become immune to the addiction.
Well, Hank Green pointed out on YouTube, you get paid as a percentage of the ads that are shown on your content. So you have some control about how much you're paid. I mean, if you can build an audience with your content and you sell ads on your content, that's the pool of money that you get to share. Google will give you 55 cents out of $1 that it earns selling advertising. The TikTok formula is different. There's this total pool for everybody. And it all depends on how they divvy up your pool based on how many views each person gets. But you don't control the size of the pool. You don't control the number of competitors you're working against, because, as Keith said, you can't build an audience on TikTok. TikTok will build an audience for you and take it from you. So it's a much different deal than you have on YouTube or on Substack. In Substack, you can charge a subscription, and if people want to pay that subscription, you get the money, and they will, the platform will take a percentage, but you know what the deal is, and you get to earn what you're worth.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it feels like TikTok operates like almost sort of like Amazon in terms of marketplaces. And TikTok, I think, considers they built an attention marketplace, so it's theirs. Well,
Right.
they'll let you kind of, rent it out, but you don't have any control over the marketplace. You don't get direct access to the actual individuals to, kind of build your own engagement off the platform, because that's what a lot of these folks are really wanting to do. They want to almost sort of like Groupon. The first contact you get through Groupon, and then you want to transition them over to your own, because Groupon takes 15, 30% of the initial transaction. I don't know. And then you want to be able to say, okay, well, that's my cost of customer acquisition, and then moving them over to their own platform where they don't have to pay that anymore. And I think TikTok is looking at this like, hey, we're a marketplace too. We're an attention marketplace. You guys are wanting to get to the billion people that are already over here. You're not really bringing us anybody new, so you're going to have to roll with what we want and, live with it. And if you don't, you can go try to build your kingdom over on YouTube or somewhere else. But it just feels like they are severely not really interested at all in treating their creators like collaborators. They're treating their creators almost sort of like sellers on Amazon are treated.
You just made me think about something, Brent, which is, if you think of the range, TikTok is at one end of the range, which I would personally think of as just passive entertainment, where you're just the viewer, from the point of view of the viewer. YouTube's a bit different. Like, you follow people and you lean in and you have subscriptions, and you get to, if you like, curate your own experience on YouTube a lot. But once you've done that, it is still quite passive. You click on things and you watch them that pique your interest. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got like Twitter, which is completely not passive, unless you just read tweets. But if you engage in it at all, it's you're seeking attention in a way. I don't even identify the concept of a viewer on Twitter, really. It's much more interactive. And it feels like there's a space in the world for all of those behaviors across the spectrum. And there'll be big companies built almost at every point, from the most interactive to the most passive. And the criteria ultimately becomes how good it is. Does it actually
I'd like to see a service that allows me to give to a news network like MSNBC. I'd like them. I would like to be able to authorize access to my mute button, so that when I mute something on the screen, it writes a vote essentially, which is, I don't want to hear any more from this person right now. I've had too much, and if you want to tell me something, let's go over here where it's quieter and less automated, and there will be markets that will form out of that information.
Do you think YouTube TV could possibly be doing something like that? Because, they know when you change a channel, they know what you watch, what time you watch, they categorize.
I agree. Absolutely right. YouTube TV, I think, is one of the most stunning applications that I've ever seen. I mean, Keith introduced this to me. I had no reason to. I'm spending my college tuition on Comcast every month. But as soon as you get into it, you realize that it may not be responsive to you right now, but it's really flipped the information from being collected to being received and then reflected back. That, there's some incomprehensible algorithm for the main screen where you're choosing the networks. For some reason, CNN never shows up there anymore. I don't know what that means. I don't know why. I tried to fool it into, go to a live screen and find CNN and then watch it for 10 minutes just to see whether or not it'll be put in the what's important or what we've picked for you. It's completely random, but it doesn't mean that it won't be harnessed for whatever the successor to clicks is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's way more than a DVR. It's a DVR with a curated user interface that is unique for each person.
Yeah, I mean, it eliminates, there are so many things about that service. It eliminates the issue of recording. You just click one button on one show, and then from that point on, they record to the cloud that show or that information. So it's always available to you. There's no tax on it of you only have 100 hours that you can record. None of that. It's like Gmail changed what email was about. That's what's going on here.
Yeah. I started looking at, you go to, because I have YouTube TV and I've had it for about, I don't know, after Keith got it. And so you start watching stuff and you notice when you turn it off and you turn it back on, they are recommending or they're putting on the front page stuff that I'm guessing they've analyzed your what you watched and when you watched it and how much of it you watch, and they're kind of putting in front of you things that they think would make sense for you to watch or that you might want to watch. I
think they learned how to do that on the YouTube service.
Why not? And
probably a very similar algorithm.
And they even do stuff like on these commercial breaks, you can tell like when it's their advertising network being used versus the network's advertising and the commercials they're running. Because there's this little info button that pops up in the corner of a commercial running that's coming from their ad network. So you can click on that and find out a little more data on the thing you're looking at. And then the other thing they do is they actually put up survey questions. And they ask you if if you don't, you can skip this if you want, but they're actually surveying you in the middle of the commercial breaks. So it's completely data gathering almost constantly on what you're watching. So you got the passive data, collection where you do what, watch and they collect, and then they're asking you questions. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before. And it feels like that's probably the way things are going to go with these streaming networks. I mean, Disney Plus just got, I think, a big coup getting the next season of Doctor Who. So it'll
Who?
be exclusively shown
Who?
Disney
Yes.
Plus. Yes, Who? Yes, that's what I said.
Who?
They're not on first either. So you've got these companies.
I've
they're
never
figuring
seen
out-
that show. Not one episode ever.
Okay.
You're kidding me,
I'm
right?
feeling good about it.
That just changed my whole outlook on you.
Well,
I bet you Frank Radis.
Do any of you remember the series that ran in April in the New York Times on the Tucker
I don't
Carlson
believe it's
show?
raining right now.
what said somebody set Siri off there? With
Yeah, that was Michael.
Tucker
Apparently.
Carlson, not a safe word anymore.
It was my
Uh,
Siri that went off. I don't know. what
They
happened.
did. Nick Compasori did a series on Tucker's show, and one of the things he said was that they use minute by minute data on attention on TuneIn to refine the show, and that data has helped it become more and more racist and virulent because they're tracking audience responses to everything he says.
Wow.
Scary.
But if that's true, all it actually means is there's a lot of racist listeners, which, so what in a way.
Well, they're
No.
there, but
What, Dennis?
I don't think you can leave it at, gee, there's a lot of racism. I mean, it strikes me that they are promoting racism and even stoking it. And that's not a good thing for the society at large. So it's not something you can just toss off.
Yeah, it's not simply that you appeal to racists. There are feedback loops established. So when you reflect something in your audience, you
That's
also
right.
amplify
Racists
it.
are made, not born.
Right? You're amplifying something that's in the audience.
Well, we do that as well. I mean, Michael, I guarantee you amplify the views that you agree with.
Absolutely.
So we all
Yes.
do that. So they're no different to us.
Oh no, that's you're conflating the two things.
But I've talked about it before. I have the herpes theory of racism. Once you're infected with a herpes virus, you have it for life. It doesn't always manifest. Most of the time it's latent, but sometimes a big cold sore pops out on your lip. And that's true, I think, with racism too. There are so many negative racist messages that all of us carry from the culture about various ethnic groups, about sexual orientation, about religions. They're all implanted deep within us. And sometimes they erupt because they're triggered and they're nurtured.
But I tell you, I had my first wife was Tamil Indian. Her name was Parasati Ganagasabai, which is hard to say.
Wow.
She was an Indian from Malaysia, the result of British colonization, taking tea planters from India and taking them to Malaysia. And my third brother, when I first took her home, said she should go back to where she comes from. And he was maybe 16 then. And he's now married to an Indian woman. And completely changed due to dialogue. So I don't really think people are such unchangeable entities. But I do think if you're passive vis-a-vis them, they can be unchangeable. But if you actively engage on the issues, most people, certainly young people, are changeable. And it's almost like giving up on any accountability on our side, the anti-racists. If we don't agree with that, it's like, okay, there's nothing we can do, so let's not do anything.
Yeah, but that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about using media to stoke racism.
But you can't stoke racism. It's not a thing.
Really? I think
can't be
Tucker
stoked.
already ran the experiment for us, dude.
There's no such thing as stoking anything. There's people with their ideas, and you can repeat them back to them for sure. That's true, and you can reinforce them. That's true. You can question them. That's true. And all I'm saying is, the only strategy that makes any sense is to question them.
Yes, but when you have isolated stovepiped audiences, you don't necessarily get to question them. So if they are drawn to something like Fox News, and Fox News reinforces their beliefs, they're not hearing from you. They're not hearing from people who might somehow modify those beliefs. The beliefs are only getting amplified and reinforced.
Echo chamber.
I understand your point, Michael, but well, we probably disagree on this, but I think the media's influence is massively overstated at the level of creating opinions. I think it's probably understated at the level of reinforcing them. But the problem is the opinions that are created, and that goes much deeper than the media. That happens before anyone's even aware of the media.
Then I don't think we're disagreeing. I'm saying though, those ideas, attitudes are implanted in us early, and we soak them up from whatever influence, from our family, from our friends, from the media. They're in there. There isn't anybody who doesn't who couldn't repeat back. If you gave someone a paper and asked them to repeat back everything that they've heard bad about Irish people, Italians, Jews, Black people, gays, trans people, they would be able to fill out the list, because we all have those messages. They're all in us.
But it's not because of the messages. I can tell you here in Palo Alto, kids grow up where if you're Black, you're poor. If you're Latino, you're poor. If you have a cleaner, she's probably from Mexico. So it's fundamentally structural in the society, and the ideas sit on top of that. So the only fix is equality, actually, to get rid of like immigration controls, deep things that say they're different. That's what you have to get rid of.
Yeah. I think you just reinforced CRT.
Yeah. So, well, no, I'm not CRT, because I really disagree with rewriting history to be nicer. I like the fact that we tell the truth about history, but
the advocates of CRT would say they agree with you. They want to tell the truth about history. History's been distorted.
Yeah, no, I think you have to talk about colonialism, you have to talk about imperialism, you have to talk about slavery. All of those things are super relevant, but less relevant the fact that a Black kid in East Palo Alto, is not the same as my son, even though they're friends, and never will be until we change. It's about how capitalism's history has treated minorities. And that's a fundamental structural change that nobody right now is speaking for. Actually, very few people speak for it. They speak about changing your language, but changing your language is so superficial. Change the actual problem.
Well, actually, the people who are advancing CRT are advocating that, and they're being resisted.
Well, because they focus on the superficial too much. It pisses me off, actually. I think, I don't care if somebody uses the N-word, to be honest. I care about the fact that a Black person is unemployed.
Yeah, well, fine.
And so it's fundamental. It's really structural. And by focusing on language or attitude.
Well, but if you look into CRT, that's what it's about. It's about
Dennis
differences, not language differences.
Dennis started this by pushing back on you, Keith, about well, this is the way it is, and we just have to deal with it, right? Is that a paraphrase, Dennis?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so can we get back to that part of this discussion rather than the sort of circular stuff that I don't understand a lot of?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of dumb people like me to be able to move forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I was
answer what Dennis said.
Yeah, Dennis is right to accuse me of that. I mean, I was basically, but on the other hand, I'm doing it on purpose because I believe it, which is I'm saying the media is a symptom, not a cause. Now, that doesn't mean it's passive. It definitely has an impact, but it's not the root. That's all I was saying. And Dennis was saying you can't just flip it off like that.
I don't think the only thing I think about that is that it's not binary. You don't have to be either a symptom or a root cause. You could be both. I mean, media is a big idea, and to tar it with one brush doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I started
I
the
agree.
discussion about media by saying that YouTube TV is incredible. And the reason that I said it has to do with my sense that these kinds of tools, to go back to what Keith said earlier, these kinds of tools are going to have an increasing impact, whether or not it's going to be positive or negative or both. It's most likely going to be both. So is there something that is going to get general happiness to up its component of our the air we breathe, or are we just doomed to this cycle of giving up? I personally think, although there's not a lot of data to support it, that we're not going to give up, that as these things become more and more clearly erosive to the time we have on Earth, that we're going to start choosing things that support emotionally a better world.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, given human beings. You put human beings in similar circumstances across centuries, and you see they react very similarly. Kennedy was famous for saying that those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. It's not really a question of, can we do something to rectify the situation? The question is, how are we going to do it?
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes.
I have to leave now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. And,
Thank you all.
Bye, Michael.
Last thoughts from whoever's still here, starting with Brent.
This has been an interesting session here. It's been great. I really appreciate the fact that we went an hour and a half. And I don't recall much politics being spoken. As much politics is going on now, and we were able to actually not talk about it. That's a good thing, at least for this week. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
Dennis.
I too am glad we didn't talk about politics. Frankly, I'm fragile. I can't talk very much about politics these days. What I do see is that things are going, I'd say, as they would in a typical election. We're seeing races everywhere tighten. The disappointing thing, or the typical and disappointing thing, is that we hear these rushed and frantic appeals through the internet and through social media for more money, to pummel the opposition with more ads. And what are we going to learn? That's at this point in time, people are pretty well dug in. You're not going to change a lot of minds with more ads.
Keith.
I really like the post that Dennis did in t.me/Gillmor gang this morning about happiness being a driver of voting sentiment. It was more subtle than that, but that's roughly what it was about. And the reason I liked it is it really focused on the human condition as the reason why things happen, as opposed to, individuals like the former guy being the reason things happen. So I liked putting it there, because then the onus then becomes on how do you make people happier and like the world they live in and want to share it with other people, which is basically the key to humanity's future. So I liked it a lot.
All right, Tina, any thought? Say that louder.
Pass.
Okay. I want to thank everybody who showed up and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time, maybe with Frank Radis.
Ooh.
Adios.
Bring the band back together.
Vamos.
Bye-bye.